Hello and welcome back to our cottage garden. We have snuck outside in between the rain. It's a really wet and miserable couple of weeks, so we got outside while it's nice, and we thought today we could do a recap of how things have been in the last year. And this is our third year of working on this garden and our first year of doing YouTube. I think I started properly doing YouTube about March this year, so slightly under a year, but I thought it's a really good time to reflect, see what went well, what didn't go well, and also to those of you that have subscribed recently, you might want to get an idea of what the garden's like. So I've written down some notes and some things that I've enjoyed, but most importantly, we should say thank you for joining us on this journey, and we really look forward to doing more gardening with you next year. And thank you to everyone who's joined our Patreon this year as well and helped us to do all of these amazing things in the garden. So yeah, thank you. We really, really appreciate it. And it's been so nice reading your comments and building a community over the last year. It's just been really good. So I will start with just before spring. So in February, we had an amazing display of crocuses. I'm only going to link to the video rather than showing you the clips because I didn't have a great camera at that time, so I can't really get the clips into this video very easily. But if you want to watch the crocus on video, do click on the link above. It was a really nice way to ease ourselves into spring. And then we got our good camera just after that. So we had tulips, and the main thing I wanted to focus on with the tulips was making them perennialise. I really want to build up a stock of bulbs that will come back every year. And they did that really well. I've been choosing varieties that I know will be more likely to come back. So things like Darwin hybrids, Viridiflora, and some species tulips, and they've all come back really well. I wasn't too keen on the colours, but it feels wasteful to get rid of them, so I have left them in again. So stay tuned for next spring, you might see another appearance from those. But my logic with the bulbs is I just feel like it's a bit wasteful to keep planting them every year and then discarding them. I'd much rather build up a collection of things that will spread or at least come back every year. And then after our tulips, we had flock down end with our runner ducks. So that meant the restrictions were lifted. So you have to keep your ducks in an enclosure over winter to stop the spread of bird flu. They don't love it. They do get tired over winter, but it's in those spring months they really want to just come out and forage in the garden. So we were able to have them back out, and that was really lovely. So nice to see all of those spring flowers and the ducks walking around the garden. It kind of it's everything I ever wanted in the garden. It makes me feel really happy and reminds me of Beatrix Potter's stories that I used to read as a child. But sadly, we did lose one of our ducks to a fox, and I think we were completely free ranging them, so I don't know how it hadn't happened sooner. We've had the ducks for a couple of years now, and when they're not in lockdown, we've always let them just have complete free range of the garden, and the garden backs onto fields, and you do see foxes walking around in the fields in the spring and summer. So it was really upsetting, and we had to completely change the way that we look after the ducks because the foxes kept coming back to the garden. We chased them off a few times, and it's a shame overall because the ducks now have to be supervised or go in the lower bits of the garden where the fox is less likely to come and try and eat them. So that was a sad part of our spring, but we learned a lot from it, and hopefully we'll be able to keep the rest of them safe now. We're really lucky that only one of them got taken. Basically, Aaron saw it happen out the window and he ran out and chased the fox off and managed to save the rest of the ducks. And if he hadn't seen that, I'm sure we would have lost all of them. So it could have been a lot worse, but it was really sad. We loved that duck. Her name was Dove, and she was super sweet. So that was another thing that happened in spring. And then the lesson that I learned in spring, I think this has been my worst year for sowing seeds and growing vegetables. I actually sowed all of my seed in some cocoa peat. I just wanted to try it. I'd heard good things about it, and it didn't work at all. And I, in the end, didn't have time to go out and get some nice proper compost to sow the seeds in, so I kind of lost most of the things that I intended to grow this year. So the things that I've grown well have been the perennial things that I didn't need to sow from seed, but every fruit and vegetable seed that I tried to grow didn't work. And thankfully, Aaron's mum has an allotment and she kindly shared her seeds with us. So we did manage to grow some things, but I think overall I learned I'm never going to buy cocoa peat again to sow my seeds. I've also learned that it's not really the best environmentally as well, so I don't think it's something that I'll be using again. But that is gardening. You learn new things every year, and if it was easy every single time, you wouldn't learn things. So I hope that next year we'll have a better year for seeds, but the bar is set really low now because we grew nothing this year. So that was kind of spring in a nutshell, I suppose. Overall, really happy with it just because of the bulbs. That's what brings me the most joy in gardening, and it's my favourite thing. Then in summer, we had a really good year for roses, so I did a rose tour video where I showed you around the roses in the garden, and all of our roses are quite young. Because we've only been here 3 years, we've been adding them a little bit at a time as we get paid, and they've just started getting themselves established. We've had a couple that have done really well, so there's Olivia Rose Austin, which is the one that performs best in our garden. I think we must have between 15 and 20 roses now. So again, stay tuned for next year. I can't wait to see what happens as those grow and flower again. Yeah, roses seem to do quite well in our garden, which I'm really pleased about, and something that will just get better every year, I hope. And I will be pruning those soon as well, so do look out for that. The other thing we did in summer was we hatched duck eggs for the first time, and it was an amazing experience because the ducks imprinted on me and I was able to have them sitting on my lap and on my shoulders, and they were so tame and would follow me around the garden, and that was really lovely. But I don't think I'd do it again, or not while we're living here, because we kept them indoors in the cottage, and our cottage is really small. The dogs were a little bit too interested, so we had to put dividers up to stop the dogs getting in the duck room. We've only got 3 rooms downstairs, so as you can imagine, that wasn't the easiest of things. And cleaning them out every day was quite a lot of work as well. So it's something that I really enjoyed, but I don't think I would be doing it in a hurry again soon. Yeah, so that was hatching the ducks, but they were the cutest things ever. It was so sweet when we took them outside for their first swim, and we had them in a sink in the garden, and really, really lovely, but hard work. The other thing that we dealt with in summer was a heat wave, and I think it was the hottest temperature on record. It was a struggle in the garden for the plants that I'd been adding at the time. We did lose a couple here or there. The biggest thing was, though, the ground, because it became so dry, started moving, and we actually had the foundation for the greenhouse has split, and it's kind of a ticking time bomb now as to whether the whole thing is going to come crumbling down, which is gutting. But when we were talking with some people that build greenhouses, they said it's better to leave it, you might get years out of it, rather than invest a lot of money in taking it down, rebuilding the foundation and putting it back up again. But it does have a really big split down the foundation, and some of the glass cracked as well, which we need to get repaired still, but fingers crossed it will be okay. It's just one of those things you can't do anything about, really, and it happens. It's quite an old greenhouse. It was here when we moved in, but that sucked. And the ponds dried out. The garden just looked really dead because the grass all went yellow and singed. Plants weren't happy. It was just a difficult time, but it kind of goes to show the importance of doing a good mulch to help keep the moisture in that you do have, and collecting rainwater around the garden, which we do a bit of, but I think in the future we'll probably like to do a little bit more in case that happens again. And then the other great thing that happened in summer was we finished our vegetable garden, and we actually started that vegetable garden in lockdown, and you know how things are, time goes on, you just don't have time to finish them. And then we were working with Wix on a campaign on TikTok, and so we got some supplies to finish it while we were making a video about that. But to get it done felt really, really good, and I'm so excited for next year, kind of starting that garden with the clean slate of it being finished, and now all we need to do is grow the plants and look after them and watch it come together. So that was summer overall. I think the most memorable thing was that heat wave, though. I really hope we don't get another one of those next year. And then that brings us on to autumn. And some of the things I learned in autumn were to try a different strategy with my dahlias. I think overall the feelings that I had in autumn were that I really want to improve on late flowering perennials and also dahlias in the garden, so that I have something interesting going on at that time. I think it's my weakest month in the garden. We don't have a lot of trees that put on a really, really amazing display. We've got this Acer tree above me, and that looks really good at the end of autumn, but it's something that I want to work on anyway. So I did add some things like salvias and pentstemon, and next year I'll continue to do more of that in the spring, so that I've got those things to look forward to. And I think I'd like to also grow more cosmos and those annuals that will give you a really generous flowering period, because honestly I felt like the garden was a bit bare in autumn. But we did get really lovely leaf mulch, and you can see that around me now. It was good fun tidying up these leaves, and I've actually still got a little bit more to do. There's still some left on the trees, so we'll keep doing that a couple more times, I think. But the leaf mulch is just so good for the soil and for the insects as well. So I love getting that on the beds and just knowing that it's going to be feeding those plants for next year. Then, of course, we had the flock down start again, so the ducks had to go back into their enclosure, unfortunately, and they're still in there now. They're not too bothered by it because they are tired in the winter. They stop laying eggs and they just go a bit docile, so they're quite happy in there, but it will be good to get them out as early in spring as we're allowed to. I also ordered my seeds in autumn so that I have a rough idea of what I want to grow next year. And like I said earlier, I'm so excited for sowing these seeds next year, because this year was a complete write-off for sowing our own seeds. I've saved a lot as well from things that we have harvested over the years. So I just can't wait. I love those early months of the year when you start getting things in the ground, and autumn is a good time to start thinking about what you want to do then. And then, of course, we had bulb planting in autumn as well. So I added a few crocuses to the crocus lawn, took the dahlias out and replaced those with tulips, and then just added tulips to the beds again. I don't ever remove my tulip bulbs. I always choose ones that will last, but I do need to top them up throughout the years when the numbers do start to dwindle. I think I added some soft colours and some black tulips as well, a nice mix of pink, white and black. And I can't wait to see how those look. I've only found one evidence of squirrel damage so far. We don't struggle too much with the squirrels, so we're really lucky in that respect. And I've still got a lot to go in. So that is autumn in a nutshell. It was a lovely month because it was so warm. You could get outside and do a lot of gardening, but I did feel like I want to improve on the flowers that we've got flowering in autumn. So that's something I'll be working on next year. And then that brings us on to winter, and we've had a really lovely winter so far. We've had some beautiful frost. It has been really cold, so in terms of technical things, it's actually been a bit of a nightmare because we've had a couple of pipes burst here and there and had to clean up water after we've discovered it. We haven't finished getting all of them fixed, so actually our water trough that we use to fill the ducks' water has exploded, so we need to get that fixed. Our washing machine exploded, so we've got that one fixed now, but these things tend to happen when it gets really cold. But the plus side was it was just beautiful seeing everything in a frost, and we even had a snow, which is quite unusual, and that was really lovely to see as well. I've been really pleased with the winter flowers that we've got in the garden, and those are still getting established, so they are quite small, but I've been working on building up a supply of hellebores and winter flowering clematis, and to be able to see the rewards of that already is amazing. I just can't wait to see more of that as the years go on and these things spread. I think it's really important to try and get something to look forward to in the garden in the winter, because otherwise it can be a little bit of a miserable time. And I love hellebores. I don't know if you can see the one next to me has just started flowering, and it's such a welcome bit of colour. It's really bright pink when nothing else is happening. We've also been working on tidying the garden over winter, so we started cleaning the greenhouses and the polytunnel, and we made a video about that, so if you'd like to have a look, I'll link to that one as well. And we put our Christmas tree up, which is the first time we've put a Christmas tree up in the garden. That was good fun, and it's nice to see that come on in the evenings. And then of course I've still got more bulbs to go. Always the way, if you like planting bulbs, there's never enough time, and then when it's frosty it's really hard to dig the ground. So I'll keep going over the next few weeks, but this is quite normal for me. Sometimes I'll plant them as late as January. It's good to get them in. It's still better than putting them on the compost bin if you feel like it's late. It might just end up flowering a bit later next year than you would expect. Still worth doing. So over the next few weeks I'll be trying to get my last few bulbs in. I think I've still got about 200 tulips, probably 200 daffodils that I want to add to the orchard, but it's stuff to look forward to. And when you get a nice warm day like this and you can dig the ground, it's just a nice thing to get you outside and have a bit of sunlight and feel like you're not living in a cave throughout the winter. So I have enjoyed winter this year compared to previous years, but all of it is still building up that excitement for spring again. I think spring is definitely my favourite season, and autumn and winter for me are that time to work towards having a really nice spring display in the garden. So stay tuned. I'll probably make another video about what my plans are for next year's garden in more detail, show you what I'm sowing. But thank you so much again for your support this year. It's been really lovely sharing the garden with you, and I'm so grateful for your support. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see our garden develop over the years, please do subscribe, and we'll see you next time.